Have you ever looked up and wondered why the sky changes color? Why it glows with gold in the morning, stretches into blue by midday, and then melts into pink, orange, and purple as the sun slips away? It happens every day, above cities, deserts, oceans, and mountaintops. And yet most of us never ask what's really behind the sky's soft performance. Tonight, let's take a slow, sleepy journey through light, air, and wonder. But before we begin, tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And if this kind of gentle curiosity helps you wind down, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe. It helps this quiet little space reach others who need it too. Let's begin with a moment. That quiet shift between night and day, when the sky isn't quite dark, but not fully bright either. If you've ever watched a sunrise from start to finish, you've seen the world change in slow motion. First, a dull gray creeps over the horizon. Then, little by little, the sky begins to blush. It turns lavender, pale pink, and soft orange, as if the universe is carefully waking up, one color at a time. But what's really happening? Why don't we just go from black to blue, like flipping a switch? The answer lies in light, sunlight to be exact, and the way it meets Earth's atmosphere. You see, sunlight looks white to our eyes, but it's actually made up of many colors mixed together. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, all traveling together in waves. But when those waves reach our sky, something magical happens. The atmosphere, filled with tiny molecules and particles, doesn't treat every color the same. It scatters them, but not equally. Blue light, with its shorter, choppier waves, gets bounced around more than red or orange. So as the sun rises and its light begins to slip in at a low angle, it has to pass through more of the sky and more of those scatter-happy particles. The result? A canvas that shifts in layers, letting the reds and pinks peek through first. It's not just beautiful, it's physics, painting with light. But here's where it gets even more delightful. Because the sky doesn't just show us colors, it actually filters them. Picture sunlight as a beam made of all the colors of a rainbow, moving together like dancers in perfect formation. When this beam hits the atmosphere, it's like walking into a crowd. The shorter blue and violet waves bump into molecules more often, scattering in all directions, while the longer red and orange waves pass through more easily. This scattering effect is known as Rayleigh scattering, named after the British scientist Lord Rayleigh, who described it in the 1800s. It's why the sky looks blue during the day, because that scattered blue light is coming at us from every direction. But in the early morning and late evening, when the sun is near the horizon, the light has to travel a much longer path through the atmosphere. The blue light gets scattered away before it even reaches your eyes, leaving behind the warmer hues, reds, oranges, and golds. That's why sunrise and sunset feel like nature's softest moments, wrapped in warmth. What's so lovely is that this dance of light and air happens all the time, even when we're not watching. It's there above us, shifting subtly with every hour. It's a reminder that beauty isn't rare. It's constant. It just takes a certain kind of stillness to notice. And maybe, just maybe, that stillness is exactly what you've settled into right now. Now let's drift a little deeper into that idea. The stillness of watching the sky. Think about the last time you truly looked at it. Not just glanced up to check the weather or squint at a passing plane, but watched it. Maybe it was while lying in bed near a window or standing barefoot in the yard with your tea cooling slowly in your hands. In those quiet moments when the clouds drift lazily and the colors unfold without hurry, you start to notice that the sky is never just one color. Even at noon, when we casually say the sky is blue, it's not a single shade. It's 1,000 soft variations. Deep cobalt straight above you, fading to pale turquoise near the horizon. It's not flat, it's layered. And that layering is shaped by dust, humidity, altitude, pollution, and even seasons. The atmosphere is constantly shifting, a sea of invisible motion, and the sky's color is its reflection. In dry desert air, the sky can be a sharp electric blue. In humid summer haze, it turns milky and soft. After a rainstorm, it becomes crystal clear, as if it's been rinsed. These differences aren't flaws, right? They're signatures, subtle hints about the world we're standing in. The sky, in a way, is like a mood ring for the planet, and maybe for us too, because often when we feel overwhelmed or restless, a long look at the sky doesn't just show us colors, it helps us breathe. Of course, we don't all see the sky the same way. The colors you notice depend not just on where you are, but on who you are. More specifically, on how your eyes are built. Inside each of our eyes are tiny cells called cones, which detect color. Most people have 3 types of cones, one for red, one for green, and one for blue. This trio lets us see a full spectrum, from violet to crimson. But even with the same biology, no 2 people experience color identically. One person's sky blue might lean turquoise, while another's might feel more periwinkle. And then there are people with color vision differences, like red-green color blindness, who see a version of the sky that's entirely their own. Some rare individuals have tetrachromacy, meaning they possess a 4th type of cone and can see colors most of us can't even imagine. Imagine that. A sky not of one hue, but of colors no language could name. But even beyond biology, there's memory, emotion, and culture. In Japanese, the word for blue, aoi, can also describe green things, like grass or traffic lights. In ancient Greek, there was no word for blue at all. Homer described the sea as wine dark, which makes you wonder how much of the sky's color is physics and how much is poetry. When you look up, are you seeing the same sky as someone across the world? Or are you seeing a shade that only you can truly feel? And what about nighttime, when the sky seems to lose its color entirely? What's left when the light fades? At first glance, it might seem like the sky turns black. But spend a few moments in the dark, really give your eyes time to adjust, and you'll notice something different. The night sky isn't truly black. It's a soft, deep navy, a gentle charcoal gray. Sometimes there's even a faint glow, a whisper of color that clings to the horizon long after the sun has vanished. That's because even at night, the atmosphere still plays with light. Some of it comes from the moon, some from starlight, and some from cities far away, whose glow bounces into the sky and spills back down. In very remote places where the air is clean and the stars shine with ancient clarity, you might even catch a glimpse of air glow, a natural light that radiates from atoms in the upper atmosphere. It's faint, greenish, and ghostly, like the sky holding on to the memory of the sun. Then there are the polar lights, auroras, where solar particles collide with Earth's magnetic field, painting the sky with vivid waves of green, pink, and purple. So no, the sky doesn't go dark at night. It becomes quieter, dimmer, more secretive. It trades brightness for depth. And if you're still awake enough to look up, you'll find that even in darkness, the sky never stops expressing itself. It just does so in whispers. Now let's return to the blue, that daytime hue we often take for granted. It's one of the first colors children learn to name. The sky is blue, we say. But pause for a moment. Why blue? Why not violet, which actually scatters more? The answer lies not just in physics, but in perception. Remember those cone cells in our eyes? They're not equally sensitive to every wavelength. Our eyes are more tuned to blue than violet, and the sun itself doesn't emit as much violet light in the first place. So even though violet scatters more, it gets overpowered, washed out by the sheer strength of blue. That's why when you look up on a clear day, it's not a purple dome, but a sea of cerulean. Still, even that blue changes. At high altitudes, like on mountain peaks or aboard airplanes, the sky can turn a deeper, almost indigo shade. That's because there's less atmosphere above you to scatter the light. Fewer molecules, fewer interruptions. The result is a purer, darker blue. And if you go higher still, into space, the sky vanishes entirely. No atmosphere means no scattering, which means no color. That's why astronauts see a pitch-black backdrop, even when standing in the sunlight. The color of the sky, then, is not a property of the sky itself. It's the result of an interaction between light, air, and eyes, a collaboration, a moment of physics made personal by perception, a daily illusion, perfectly real, perfectly ours. But not all skies are clear. Sometimes clouds sweep in and the canvas changes entirely. The blue fades, the brightness softens, and suddenly the sky becomes a gallery of grays. Pearl, slate, silver, pewter. Each storm brings its own palette, its own story. Light clouds cast only the softest veil, letting patches of blue peek through. But thick clouds, they scatter light in all directions, not just the short blue wavelengths, but the longer ones too, making the sky appear uniformly gray. And yet, even in this uniformity, there's movement. Watch long enough and you'll notice how shadows ripple across the landscape as clouds drift above. The color of a cloudy sky isn't fixed. It shifts with depth, sunlight, and moisture. On some days, there's a warm tint. The gray leans golden. On others, it cools into blue-gray or even greenish hues before a storm. And when the sun is low, behind those clouds, you get something even more subtle: diffused color. Instead of bright beams, the light becomes gentle and spread out. The whole sky glows faintly, as if it's thinking about blushing, but hasn't quite decided. These skies aren't dramatic. They don't demand attention, but they invite quiet, reflection. The kind of days where tea feels like a good idea, and staring out the window becomes a form of meditation. So while blue skies are often celebrated, gray skies carry their own kind of magic. Soft, thoughtful, and full of stories told in hushed tones. Now let's gently drift into the golden hour, that brief beloved window just after sunrise and just before sunset. It's when the sun sits low in the sky and everything it touches seems to glow. The name comes from the light itself, warm, soft, honey-colored. But what makes it so special? Why does the world look so cinematic during these times? The answer again lies in the angle of the sun. When it's low, sunlight has to pass through more of the Earth's atmosphere before it reaches your eyes. That longer journey means more scattering of blue and green wavelengths, leaving behind the warmer reds, oranges, and golds. These tones don't just touch the sky. They spill onto buildings, trees, skin, clouds. Everything becomes bathed in that gentle amber light. Shadows stretch, edges soften. Even noisy cities seem quieter. Photographers and filmmakers often chase the golden hour, knowing it makes the world feel kinder. But you don't need a camera to feel its magic. Just step outside during that time. Watch how the sunlight filters through leaves, or how a brick wall takes on a richer hue. Even the clouds seem to drift more slowly. There's something inherently nostalgic about it. as if the day itself is trying to linger. And maybe it is. The golden hour doesn't rush. It's patient, deliberate. It reminds us to slow down, to notice the changing light, and to understand that beauty isn't always bold. Sometimes it arrives quietly, just before night falls. And then comes twilight, that in-between moment when the sun has dipped below the horizon, but its light hasn't vanished completely. It's not day, but not quite night either. Just a soft blur of both. This time of day is so unique, it's actually divided into 3 phases. Civil twilight, when there's still enough light to see without artificial sources. Nautical twilight, when the horizon is barely visible at sea. And astronomical twilight, when the sky is dark enough for stargazing but still touched by the sun's memory. During twilight, the colors in the sky shift gently, like watercolors bleeding into one another. Pink becomes purple, purple becomes blue, and then finally, indigo. This gradient isn't just pretty, it's a story told by angles and atoms. As sunlight bends through the Earth's atmosphere, it refracts, curves, scattering red and orange horizontally, while the last blues and purples rise to the upper sky. You may have noticed that streetlights start to glow during twilight, and birds fall silent. It's a time of transition, nature adjusting its rhythm. In many cultures, twilight is seen as sacred, a time for prayers, for peace, for reflection. It's easy to understand why. There's something humbling about the sky in those moments. It feels bigger, more mysterious. And as the last light fades, the first stars begin to peek through. The sky doesn't go dark all at once. It lets go slowly, gently, as if it knows you're watching, and it wants to say goodbye. But not all colors in the sky are from sunlight alone. Sometimes other forces paint their own strokes across the atmosphere. And one of the most breathtaking is the aurora. Known as the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis, or Southern Lights, Aurora Australis, these glowing ribbons of green, purple, and pink shimmer across polar skies like cosmic brushstrokes. But what causes them? It begins with the sun, not its light, but its energy. The sun constantly sends out a stream of charged particles known as the solar wind. Most of the time, Earth's magnetic field shields us from this stream. But near the poles where the magnetic field lines dip inward, those particles slip through and collide with gases high in the atmosphere. When they strike oxygen and nitrogen molecules, energy is released in the form of light, and the sky glows. Green comes from oxygen about 100 kilometers up. Purple and red come from nitrogen. The result is something otherworldly. The sky dancing, flowing, alive. If you've ever seen it in person, you know there's no photograph that does it justice. The lights move like silk in water, unpredictable and serene. For thousands of years, people have told stories about auroras, from spirits of ancestors to celestial battles. But whether explained by folklore or physics, they share the same effect: awe. They remind us that the sky is not just a backdrop to life. It's a performer, a stage, a place where even invisible forces find their moment to shine. But even in skies untouched by auroras, something curious can happen. Something far more common, yet still mysterious. Have you ever looked up just before sunrise or just after sunset and seen a faint band of pinkish light stretching opposite the sun? That's called the belt of Venus, a gentle rose-colored arc that rises above the darker line of the Earth's shadow. It's a quiet phenomenon, often missed if you're not paying attention. But once you see it, you'll never forget it. The belt of Venus appears when sunlight scattered by the atmosphere reflects back across the horizon, illuminating the upper atmosphere with soft pink and violet hues. Below it, you'll often see a deep grayish-blue band. That's the Earth's shadow, rising like a tide. The contrast is striking, warm and cool, light and dark, all playing out across a massive canvas. What's beautiful about this moment is how understated it is. It doesn't flash or roar. It waits in silence. You have to be looking away from the sun to even notice it. A quiet reward for those who turn their gaze. There's a lesson in that, perhaps, that not all beauty stands in the spotlight. Some of it waits in the wings, subtle and patient. The belt of Venus reminds us that light can echo, that shadows can climb, and that the sky holds layers, both literal and symbolic, waiting to be seen. All you need is stillness and the will to look both ways. Sometimes the sky gives us not just color, but shape. And few shapes are more fleeting than a sun pillar. Have you ever seen a vertical beam of light stretching upward or downward from the rising or setting sun, like a column of fire or a heavenly spotlight? That's a sun pillar. It forms when sunlight reflects off tiny ice crystals suspended in the upper atmosphere, especially during cold mornings or evenings. These crystals are flat, hexagonal, and they drift slowly down like leaves, catching the light at just the right angle. Unlike a sunbeam, which radiates outward, a sun pillar appears to reach up or down in a straight line. It doesn't shine, it glows, still, steady. And then, gone. Sun pillars only last a few minutes, but those minutes feel elevated, like the sky is holding its breath. What makes them special isn't just how rare they are, but how they make you feel when you catch one. There's no warning, no sound, just a sudden, impossible shape in the sky, almost like a secret. You might glance around, wondering if anyone else sees it, but often you're alone, just you and this beam of light that looks like it was drawn from another world. And when it fades, as it always does, you're left with a quiet sense of wonder, as if the sky briefly acknowledged you, as if, just for a moment, it showed you something it doesn't always reveal. A reminder that not everything needs to last to be unforgettable. And then there are skies that shimmer, not with color, but with texture. Have you ever seen thin, wavy clouds glowing just after sunset, long after the rest of the sky has dimmed? These are noctilucent clouds, and they are some of the rarest and highest clouds on Earth. The name means night shining, and it fits perfectly. While most clouds live in the lower atmosphere, these float near the edge of space, over 80 kilometers high, in a layer called the mesosphere. They're made of tiny ice crystals that catch the last light of the sun, long after it has set for the rest of us. From the ground, they look like pale electric threads stretched across a twilight canvas. Silvery blue, faintly glowing, still. Noctilucent clouds appear mostly during summer at higher latitudes, and scientists believe they're formed when water vapor clings to dust particles, sometimes from meteors, in that upper layer of the atmosphere. But what makes them magical isn't just the science, it's the feeling. They arrive when most of the world is turning in. They appear above cities already dimmed and fields already quiet. If you spot them, you feel like you're witnessing a secret performance. Silent, delicate, and utterly unreachable. Unlike storm clouds that move with force, these barely move at all. They hover, drift, whisper, and they remind you that even at the edge of night, the sky is still awake, still offering softness, even from the stars' doorstep. Of course, we can't talk about sky colors without pausing for a moment on one of the most familiar, and yet most quietly astonishing experiences of all. The simple, complete blueness of a clear midday sky. It's so constant, so steady, that we rarely think about it. It's the background to our errands, our commutes, our conversations. But that soft dome of blue overhead is anything but ordinary. During midday, when the sun is highest, sunlight takes the shortest path through the atmosphere to reach our eyes. This shorter path means less filtering of the blue wavelengths, which scatter widely and intensely across the sky, giving us that rich, expansive blue. But this blue isn't flat. Look closely. Directly overhead, it's deep, almost royal. Closer to the horizon, it fades to pale. That gradient is subtle but ever present, shaped by the thickness of the air between you and the sun. And if you've ever taken a high-altitude flight, you've seen how that blue shifts again, growing darker, almost navy, as the air thins and the Earth's veil becomes transparent. This midday blue is like a song that's always playing, so constant you stop hearing it, until one day you pause, look up, and notice it again. And when you do, there's something grounding about it, like a ceiling of calm stretched endlessly above you. That blue sky doesn't ask for attention, it just offers it. A quiet, open presence, a reminder that peace, too, can be vast and waiting. Now let's wander into something more invisible, yet just as present, in the theater of the sky. Pollution and particles, and how they subtly shape the colors we see. While we often associate pollution with grayness or haze, it can actually intensify the reds and oranges at sunrise and sunset. That's because certain particles in the air, like dust, smoke, or industrial aerosols, scatter and absorb light differently than clean air does. Large particles tend to scatter all wavelengths more equally, muting the blues and letting warm colors dominate. You've probably noticed that after a wildfire or volcanic eruption, the sunsets become more vivid, glowing with deep reds and surreal purples. It's eerie, beautiful, and a little haunting. These dramatic skies are nature's paradox, made more striking by imbalance. But not all particles are pollutants. Natural dust, sea salt, even pollen can shift the color of the sky. In the Sahara, fine desert dust drifts across continents, turning skies golden and hazy thousands of kilometers away. In tropical regions, high humidity can soften sunlight into milky pastel skies. And after a thunderstorm, when the air is washed clean, the blue becomes deeper, sharper, a kind of visual reset. So the color of the sky doesn't just tell you the time of day, it tells you about the air around you, what's drifting in it, what's been stirred or settled. In that sense, every sky is a report, not just of weather, but of breath, of motion, of what hangs between us and the stars. Let's drift now into the rarest skies, the ones that feel like dreams because they don't look real at all. Have you ever seen a sun halo? A glowing circle of light surrounding the sun, as if the sky had drawn a perfect ring in luminous chalk? These halos aren't illusions, though they certainly feel magical. They occur when sunlight passes through thin, wispy cirrus clouds high in the atmosphere. These clouds contain tiny hexagonal ice crystals floating far above the weather. As sunlight enters and exits these crystals, it bends, refracts at a precise 22-degree angle. The result is a circle of light, pale and ghostly, wrapped neatly around the sun. Sometimes, if conditions are perfect, the halo will be accompanied by bright spots on either side, called sundogs, like glowing companions escorting the sun on its path. Unlike rainbows, which come after storms, halos arrive quietly. No thunder, no drama, just a slow appearance, often missed unless you happen to glance upward at just the right time. There's something humbling about them. They make the sky feel like a cathedral, vast, sacred, built from nothing but cold air and sunlight. And though you can explain every detail of their physics, they still feel like signs. Not warnings, just gentle reminders that the world still holds surprises, not in rare places, but in the familiar. Even in the middle of the day, on an ordinary walk, the sky might suddenly draw a circle and invite you to wonder. And sometimes, when the atmosphere wants to put on its most playful show, it gives us a rainbow, a full spectrum of color arcing gracefully across the sky. Most of us have seen rainbows since childhood, and yet each time they appear, they still feel unexpected, like a quiet gift, a sudden softness after rain. But rainbows aren't just beautiful. They're optical miracles born from the dance between sunlight and raindrops. When the sun is behind you and rain is falling ahead of you, the droplets act like tiny prisms. As light enters a droplet, it slows down and bends, refracts. Then it reflects off the inside of the droplet and bends again as it exits, splitting into its component colors. Red bends the least, violet the most, and together they spread out into the arc we see. What's fascinating is that the rainbow you see is yours alone. The exact combination of droplets and angle of light that create it are specific to your eyes and position. Move a few steps, and the rainbow moves too. That's why you can never walk to the end of a rainbow. It isn't fixed in space. It's a moment of alignment. Sometimes, if the light is strong enough and the raindrops uniform, you might see a double rainbow with a second, fainter arc above the first. Its colors reversed, like a whispered echo. And every time the sky seems to pause, like it knows you're watching, like it wants you to remember. But the sky doesn't only speak through color and light. Sometimes it whispers through absence. Have you ever stood beneath a sky so overcast, so thick with cloud, that it feels like the world has been tucked under a giant gray blanket? No sun, no blue, no variation. Just a smooth, heavy ceiling. These overcast skies are formed by thick layers of stratus clouds. Low, uniform, and full of moisture. They scatter light in all directions, creating a sky that feels flat, shadowless, almost textureless. To some, this might feel dull, gloomy even. But there's a strange beauty in these skies too, a kind of stillness that invites inwardness. Under an overcast sky, colors on the ground become richer, softer. Reds deepen, greens glow, sounds seem muffled. Time slows down. It's the kind of sky that makes coffee taste better, books feel heavier, and thoughts wander farther. In northern climates where gray skies can linger for weeks, people learn to read the subtle shifts, the slight lightening that hints at clearing, the deepening gray that suggests snow. And when the sun does finally return, it feels like a gift. A sky with no color becomes the perfect canvas for noticing contrast, for appreciating change. It's a reminder that not all beauty needs drama. Sometimes quiet skies hold space for quiet thoughts, and in their soft monotone, they give our restless minds permission to pause, to breathe, to sit under a sky that expects nothing, except maybe presence. Now, imagine the sky just after a storm. That charged golden stillness when the rain has passed, but the clouds haven't yet drifted away. There's a clarity in the air, as if the world has been rinsed. And then, almost without warning, the sun breaks through. Not softly, but in bold shafts that cut through the cloud cover like spotlights from the heavens. These beams are called crepuscular rays, and despite their dramatic appearance, they're wonderfully simple in origin. As sunlight filters through gaps in clouds, often cumulus or cumulonimbus, it scatters through particles in the atmosphere, forming visible columns of light and shadow. The name crepuscular comes from the Latin word for twilight, because they're most commonly seen during sunrise or sunset when the angle of light is low and the contrast is strong. They look like divine brushstrokes painted from the sun to the earth. Sometimes they fan out from a single point on the horizon. Other times they appear to pierce the entire sky. But here's the secret. Those beams are actually parallel. It's perspective. The same way train tracks seem to meet in the distance that makes them look like they spread apart. It's a trick of geometry dressed as a miracle. And yet, even knowing that, they still feel miraculous. Crepuscular rays don't just illuminate the sky. They remind us that behind every cloud, no matter how thick, there is always light waiting for its chance to break through. Quietly, powerfully, beautifully. But while we often focus on the sky above, there's something just as captivating that happens closer to the ground. Reflections. Have you ever looked at the sky mirrored in a lake just after dawn, or in the shimmer of a rain puddle after a storm? These reflections aren't just upside-down skies. They're softened, more painterly versions, like nature's watercolor reinterpretation. The blues become gentler, the clouds more diffuse, the oranges and purples of sunset stretch and melt across the surface like silk. When the water is still, it feels like you're peering into another world, a second sky that ripples with even the slightest breeze. In fact, ancient cultures often believed reflections in water were portals, doorways to the heavens or the spirit world, and it's easy to see why. The sight of a fiery sunset sky doubled in a pond or along a wet street can feel surreal, even divine. Scientifically, these reflections occur because light bounces off the surface at an angle equal to the one it came in on. A clean mirror effect when the water is calm. But once wind moves the surface or raindrops ripple through, the reflected sky dances, flickers, blurs. It reminds us that the world we see isn't always fixed. It depends on perspective, position, stillness. So next time you pass a puddle or peer over a quiet river, take a moment. You're not just looking at water, you're looking into the sky's echo, a quiet poem written in liquid light. Let's turn our gaze to something even more fleeting. The skies that arrive not in hours, but in moments. Think of a flash of color on the edge of the sun, just as it dips below the horizon. Have you ever heard of the green flash? It's a rare optical phenomenon that occurs during sunset or sunrise, lasting only a second or two. As the sun slips beneath the horizon, the last light it sends through the thickest layer of Earth's atmosphere gets split, bent, and filtered. Most wavelengths scatter away, but under just the right conditions, clear air, no haze, a perfectly flat horizon, a burst of green light may appear just above the sun's rim. It's not a beam, not a streak, but a tiny shimmer, a blink of emerald caught in time. Sailors and sky watchers have told stories about it for centuries. Some say spotting the green flash brings good luck or clarity. Some say it shows you the truth of things. And while science explains it as atmospheric refraction, it doesn't take away the magic, because you can't chase a green flash. You can only wait, be still, and hope the sky decides to show you. It's one of those moments that asks for full presence. No phone, no distraction, just you and the horizon. And if you're lucky enough to see it, you'll know. It feels like the sky winking. A brief secret offered with a smile, then gone, leaving behind only wonder and maybe a deeper breath. And while the sky is known for its ever-changing colors, sometimes it offers something even more profound. The absence of color, the purity of darkness. A night sky untouched by city lights can feel endless. In the deep countryside or on a mountain far from civilization, you can look up and see the Milky Way stretching from one horizon to the other. A river of stars painted in whites, silvers, and faint purples. And yet, this darkness isn't empty. It's teeming. Every tiny speck is a sun, many with planets of their own. The darkness, in fact, is what lets those stars shine. Light, no matter how far it travels, needs contrast to be seen. Without the dark, the stars would vanish into glare. Astronomers call it true night, that rare quality of sky that allows even the dimmest stars to be visible. You might see meteors streak across, satellites drifting quietly, or if you're lucky, a comet with a ghostly tail. This sky has its own kind of color, not painted in daylight hues, but in stories, in distance, in age. Light from the nearest star takes over 4 years to reach your eyes. Others have traveled thousands. So when you look up, you're not just seeing space, you're seeing time itself. Ancient light, still glowing. The sky at night is not blank. It's a cathedral of memory. It reminds us how small we are, how vast everything else is, and how beautiful it is to be part of something we'll never fully understand, yet always be under. And speaking of time, did you know the sky once looked very different than it does today? Earth's early sky wasn't always blue. Billions of years ago, when our atmosphere was thick with volcanic gases, the sky likely appeared reddish-orange, hazy, and harsh, a world still forming. There were no plans to create the oxygen we breathe today, no blue skies, no sunsets as we know them, just a dim, dense dome hanging low over a restless planet. As life evolved, particularly photosynthetic microbes, they slowly began releasing oxygen into the atmosphere, triggering what's known as the Great Oxygenation Event, around 2.4 billion years ago. Over millions of years, this transformation didn't just change life, it changed the color of the sky itself. The increase in oxygen led to the formation of ozone, which protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays and contributes to the light-scattering conditions that give us our iconic blue sky. So in a way, the sky's color is a living record of Earth's evolution, a story written not in stone but in air, and it continues to evolve. If you could fast forward millions of years into the future, Earth's sky might shift again, as the sun grows hotter and the atmosphere changes in response. The sky we take for granted, the blue, the gold, the gray, is just one chapter. A brief, beautiful frame in Earth's long, breathing timeline. And you're here now, beneath it, watching the sky as it is, before it becomes something else. And while the science behind the sky is vast and fascinating, sometimes the most moving part of it is what it makes us feel. Think of how many memories are attached to the sky. Moments of pause, of longing, of joy. A child pointing up at a drifting cloud, imagining dragons. A teenager lying on the hood of a car, watching stars blink into view. An old friend waving goodbye as the plane climbs through layers of light. The sky isn't just an atmosphere, it's a backdrop for our stories. We look to it when words run out, when we want to dream, or grieve, or hope. How many times have you stared at a sunset and thought of someone you miss? Or looked at a thunderstorm and felt your heart mirror its unrest? The colors of the sky are more than physics. They're emotional. Red can feel like courage or heartbreak. Blue like peace or loneliness. Gold like arrival or farewell. And when the sky turns completely overcast, it's as if the world itself is asking you to slow down, to feel, without explaining why. Maybe that's why we turn to the sky in moments of uncertainty. It doesn't judge, it doesn't solve, it just stays. Always changing, yet always there. a canvas big enough to hold whatever we're carrying, questions, memories, wonder. And as you lie here now, listening gently, eyes maybe beginning to close, know that above you, the sky continues, painting, shifting, waiting for morning and for you. And sometimes the sky gives us shapes, fleeting, whimsical, and entirely open to interpretation. Have you ever looked up at a sky full of fluffy clouds and seen animals, faces, entire stories playing out in white against the blue? This delightful habit is known as pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find familiar patterns in random things. It's why we see a rabbit on the moon, a face in the front of a car, or a dragon in a cloud. But cloud watching is more than a childhood game. It's a kind of slow art, a meditation, a quiet act of imagination. Clouds themselves are small miracles, formed when water vapor cools and condenses into tiny droplets or ice crystals. Their shapes depend on altitude, temperature, air pressure, and wind. Cumulus clouds are the big, puffy ones, playful and light. Cirrus clouds are wispy and high like brush strokes. Stratus clouds form long gray blankets. And cumulonimbus, the towering giants, are the clouds of thunder and lightning. But no matter their scientific name, they are always moving, always changing. That cloud shaped like a cat becomes a ship, then a crown, then nothing at all. It's a reminder of how quickly beauty passes, and how the act of noticing, really noticing, can turn a moment into something meaningful. When we look up at clouds, we're not just reading the weather, we're letting the sky speak back to us in symbols, in softness, in temporary, drifting dreams. And isn't it remarkable how the sky can reflect our moods without saying a word? When we're joyful, we notice the brightness, the clarity of light, the sweep of color. When we're quiet or uncertain, we feel the weight of clouds, the hush of gray. It's almost as if the sky mirrors us, even when we're not paying attention. Poets and painters have turned to the sky for centuries, not just for beauty, but for language, trying to describe emotions too vast to explain with sentences alone. Vincent van Gogh wrote that the night sky made him dream. Emily Dickinson called the sky the dome of heaven. In every culture, the sky has become a canvas for belief, a place where gods live, where ancestors shine, where the future waits. But even stripped of symbolism, it remains deeply personal. A sunset you saw once while riding a bus, a cloud you watched from a hospital window, a storm you watch break while holding someone's hand. The sky holds these fragments for us, and somehow, no matter where we are in the world, we all share it. The same moon that rises over mountaintops in Tibet will rise over a quiet backyard in Ohio. The same colors that burn behind the ocean horizon will eventually glow behind your rooftop. So when you look up, whether it's to think, to hope, or simply to rest your eyes, you're participating in something shared, yet deeply intimate. The sky belongs to everyone, but in each moment, it's uniquely yours. And the sky, for all its vastness, can be incredibly precise. Scientists have studied its colors so closely that we can now measure changes in climate just by observing the light it scatters. As global temperatures shift and pollution levels rise or fall, the sky reacts, subtly but noticeably. The colors of sunrise and sunset are particularly sensitive to these changes. More particulates in the atmosphere can lead to brighter, more intense reds. Less humidity can create cleaner, crisper blues. Even volcanic eruptions on the other side of the planet can temporarily change the tone of your local twilight. In this way, the sky becomes a kind of archive, a record of what's happening here and elsewhere all at once. Astronomers use sky glow to monitor light pollution in growing cities. Meteorologists read cloud formations like sentences, and climatologists use satellite imagery to track patterns that span oceans and continents. But for all its scientific precision, the sky remains something we experience emotionally first. We notice how it feels long before we try to explain why. A hazy sunrise might make you feel nostalgic. A sudden burst of golden light might lift your spirits. And sometimes, without warning, the sky opens up and rains, not dramatically, but softly, like a sigh, and we respond without thinking. Stepping back, pausing, reaching out a hand. It's that quiet relationship between what we see and how we feel that makes the sky more than just an atmosphere. It makes it a companion, a silent, ever-present witness to the shape of our days. And then there are those skies that arrive after something ends, after the storm has passed, after the long night, after the goodbye. These skies don't demand attention. They're not vivid or dramatic. They're pale, maybe even a little colorless. But they carry a kind of peace that feels deeper than brightness. A sky that says, "You made it through." In these quiet moments, the colors seem to return slowly, like the world is exhaling. The clouds part in silence, a soft blue emerges, not the brilliant blue of midday, but a softer tone, like a thought you almost forgot. The wind is gentler, the light more diffused. Birds begin to sing again. These are recovery skies, skies that arrive after intensity and simply offer calm. You might not notice them if you're in a rush, but if you're still, if you look up, you'll feel it. That gentle reassurance. The sky has weathered something, and so have you. And in its pale return, you're reminded that cycles exist, that nothing, no matter how wild, lasts forever. These post-storm skies are especially powerful, not because of what they show, but because of what they no longer carry. No thunder, no weight, just presence. And in their stillness, they teach something subtle, that healing isn't always loud or sudden. Sometimes it's a thin line of light across a gray sky. Sometimes it's air that smells like wet leaves. Sometimes it's just the feeling that above you, the world is quiet again. And so are you. Now let's drift gently into one of the sky's softest illusions. The blue hour. It's that short period of twilight each morning and evening when the sun has dipped just below the horizon, but its indirect light lingers, painting the sky in velvety shades of blue. It's deeper than a daytime blue, more muted, more mysterious. Photographers and poets adore this hour because the world looks dreamlike beneath it. City lights begin to flicker, windows glow golden, and the contrast between warm artificial light and the cool blue sky creates a quiet kind of magic. Unlike the golden hour, which floods everything with warmth, the blue hour pulls you inward. It's a time for reflection, for thought, for holding still. Scientifically, the blue hour occurs when the sun is between 4 to 8 degrees below the horizon. The indirect sunlight filters through the atmosphere and scatters, with shorter blue wavelengths dominating the view. But most people don't know that. They just feel it. That soft pull of a color, that pause between brightness and night. You may have walked home during the blue hour without knowing its name, feeling that everything looked softer, as if the world was wrapping up for the day, or maybe just waking gently. The blue hour doesn't last long, 20 to 40 minutes depending on where you are, but in those quiet moments the world becomes quieter too. Even time seems to stretch, and in that gentle blue, you might just find the perfect color for letting go. And as the sky begins to darken, let's not forget one of its most delicate offerings, the moon. Unlike the sun, which floods the sky with light, the moon is quiet, reserved, and slow. Its colors change from night to night and phase to phase. Sometimes it rises as a soft silver disk, almost transparent against a pale sky. Other times it glows a rich orange or red, especially when low on the horizon. This is caused by the same scattering effect that paints our sunsets. As the moonlight passes through more atmosphere, the shorter blue wavelengths scatter away, and the longer, warmer ones reach our eyes. A harvest moon, full and low, can look like a floating lantern. A waxing crescent, sharp and faint, can feel like a secret being whispered across the sky. And a blood moon during a lunar eclipse turns coppery red as Earth's shadow drapes over it. A surreal reminder that even our own planet can momentarily shift the sky's palette. But more than color, the moon offers rhythm. It tethers our tides, influences sleep, and keeps gentle company to those awake late into the night. For centuries, it has been a clock, a calendar, a companion. You might glance at it during a walk and feel suddenly less alone. Its glow is borrowed, its color is filtered, and its presence is soft. But somehow, it stays with us. The moon reminds us that even reflected light can be beautiful. Even borrowed brilliance can feel like home. And now, with night fully settled and stars beginning to quietly gather, the sky returns to its oldest language, one spoken in constellations. Long before we understood atoms or orbits, humans looked up and told stories in the stars. We saw hunters, bears, goddesses, and dragons. We traced connections between distant points of light and made meaning out of the space between them. The stars themselves don't change, at least not on timescales we can notice, but our stories do. What once guided sailors now guides dreamers. What once marked planting seasons now marks long, thoughtful pauses on quiet evenings. And yet, their presence feels the same, steady, ancient, full of promise. The light from the closest stars takes years to reach us. Some of the starlight you see tonight left its source before you were born. In a way, when we stargaze, we are looking into the past, reading a message sent across time. Some stars burn blue-white, blazing hot. Others glow orange or red, cooler and older. The variation in their colors tells astronomers everything, from age to distance to composition. But for most of us, the stars just remind us to look up, to pause, to wonder. Lying under a starry sky, especially far from the city's glow, is like touching eternity. It humbles you. It centers you. It reminds you that while the sky holds light and movement and storms, it also holds silence. A silence so vast it makes room for every wish you've never said aloud. And somewhere in all this, the blue, the gray, the fire and shadow, there's something deeper the sky teaches us, that nothing in nature ever stays still. And yet, it's in that movement that we find peace. The sky is never exactly the same from one minute to the next. Clouds shift, light bends. The sun arcs higher, then lower. Even on a cloudless day, the blue deepens and fades without our noticing. And yet, this constant motion doesn't feel chaotic. It feels rhythmic, grounding. There's a lesson in that change doesn't always have to feel like loss. Sometimes it's just light moving across the hours. Sometimes it's the sky showing us that presence and impermanence can live side by side. You may look up in the morning and see a soft haze. By midday, the light is sharp and clear. By evening, the world is blushing, and all of it passes gently without resistance. The sky doesn't cling. It doesn't hold on to a color or a shape or a mood. It just offers what it has, moment by moment. And maybe, as we live our own days, with our own highs and lows, shifts and storms, we can take a cue from the sky to soften and to change, to move without panic, to glow even as we let go. Because if there's anything the sky proves again and again, it's this. Beauty isn't in staying the same. It's in how gracefully we pass through light. And so, as we near the end of this quiet journey, let's return to where we began. To that simple, wondrous question. Why does the sky change colors? The scientific answers are there. Rayleigh scattering, light angles, atmospheric particles. But now perhaps we see that the question itself opens more than an explanation. It opens a doorway into attention, into awe. The sky changes because the earth turns, because light bends, because molecules dance, but also because we, as observers, carry our own filters, our moods, our memories, our metaphors. The sunrise isn't the same when you're in love as it is when you're grieving. A gray sky means something different when you're resting than when you're restless. Color becomes a language, both literal and emotional, and the sky, in its infinite shifts, becomes a translator for what we feel but can't quite name. So when the sky turns orange or purple or golden pink, it's not just physics. It's a performance and an invitation. Look up, it says. Be here. Notice. Let this moment hold you. Let this color speak without needing to be explained. And as the colors deepen and the stars begin to blink awake once more, we're reminded that the sky doesn't have to stay bright to be beautiful. It just has to be. Changing, softening, enduring. So tomorrow, or the next day, or the one after that, when you see the sky shift above you, pause, breathe, and remember, you're part of it too. Light, shadow, wonder, always changing, always home. So here we are, a little farther along in time than when we began, having wandered through colors, clouds, stars, shadows, and silence. We followed the light from sunrise to sunset, from storm to stillness, from ancient sky myths to the science of scattering particles. And through it all, one quiet truth lingers. The sky doesn't need to be understood to be meaningful. It just needs to be witnessed. There will always be more to learn. New discoveries, new layers of light and physics. But even if you never memorize a term or calculate a wavelength, you'll still know the sky. You've known it your whole life. In glances, in pauses, in moments you didn't even realize you were paying attention. And maybe tonight, you'll step outside for just a second longer. Maybe you'll notice the hue above the rooftops, the way a single cloud catches the fading light, the way dusk feels softer than it did the day before. Or maybe you'll close your eyes right now, imagining the sky above you, changing, patient, always moving but never rushing. Wherever you are and whatever time it is for you, thank you for traveling through this gentle journey. If you found peace in the quiet rhythm of the sky, or simply drifted into rest while listening, I'm grateful you shared this moment. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to wander with me again. Until next time, sleep well, fellow traveler. The sky will be waiting just above you, always changing, always watching, always yours.